Hello again. After days of mixed messages and contradictions by Cabinet Security Cluster, it is still under scrutiny for its handling of the recent unrest in KZN and Gauteng, from the very public disagreement between Police Minister Peggy and State Security Minister Ayanda Dlodlo about intelligence warnings ahead of the violence and looting, to Defence Minister Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula then contradicting President Cyril Ramaphosa's statement that the country was facing an attempted insurrection. There are calls now from some quarters for the ministers involved to be reshuffled for their poor handling of the crisis. Let's speak more about this with political analyst Professor Kwandiwe Kondlo, who's joining us virtually. Prof, a very good afternoon to you. Grateful for your time. So, President Cyril Ramaphosa is going to speak tonight about the coronavirus pandemic, but is there an opportunity here for him to finally bring back the lost confidence from the public in his security cluster ministers?
Well, it depends how the president is going to structure today's engagement with South African society. Whether he's going to want to limit his talk only to COVID-19, or he's going to extend beyond COVID-19 and talk about what happened during the period of what he called the failed insurrection. Yes, definitely the president has to say something to South African society about the security cluster. It is indeed a problematic cluster. The kind of lethargy we witnessed, we all saw, with the police reaction to the looting, the delayed arrival of the military, and also the muted role of the intelligence security in all what was happening. It actually makes people really lose confidence in the kind of protection they enjoy from the South African government. It would be important for the president to touch on this, even if it's a very little bit.
And is a sacking of the ministers, as some have been saying, is being discussed in certain quarters, is that the ultimate solution in terms of winning back this lost confidence?
I think the president would need to, because I don't think politically, especially given that there is a conference, ANC conference coming, I don't think it would be wise for him to touch the security cluster and do any reshuffling. But it's up to him, because he is the one who invites these ministers to serve on the cabinet. But what I think is very important for the president to look into, it's the implementation of the recommendations of the Mufumadi inquiry, the high-level panel review of the State Security Agency. It has 12 focus areas, very important focus areas, and nothing has really been done to address the 12 focus areas. Whatever refinements the president has done, especially related to the State Security Agency, it's very piecemeal adjustments and corrections. So I think it's important that before reshuffling people, look at the recommendations of the Mufumadi high-level review panel. And of course, the president needs to plan carefully an overarching overhaul of the entire security cluster. And this could take a bit of time.
Pardon me, Prof. There's also a sense that what happened last week was, to a degree, a test of President Ramaphosa's leadership himself. Now, if it was a test, did he pass?
I don't think he passed. I don't think he passed. But at the same time, I wouldn't say he failed completely. But really, it exposed something which I think he overlooked or didn't take too seriously in his presidency. The issue about the security cluster. That is a very important cluster. And the nuance of it, the detail of it, I don't think the president got the time to put his finger on it.
And there's also the issue, Professor, of South Africa's socio-economic context, whether one argues that the violence and looting was orchestrated in a way that took advantage of people who are poor, in desperate need of economic benefit in this country or some kind of opportunity, or whether these were genuinely people who, out of poverty and desperation, saw a gap and took it. That needs to be addressed, because at this point it looks very likely that we're going to see something somewhat of more unrest or even an uprising based on the socio-economic challenges in this country.
Yes, Tim, what we witnessed, I can tell you now, it's the foretaste of things to come. We're calling this a failed insurrection. I still don't think it's a failed insurrection, as far as I'm concerned. I think it's an upheaval by poor people. Yes, it does have insurrectionary elements, but it's a foretaste of things to come. The fate of our young democracy rests on one thing: a very serious redistribution of wealth, and a very radical redistribution of wealth. That's what South Africa needs to do to save democracy. Otherwise, all these other airy-fairy talks will not help. What will help is the significant redistribution of wealth in South Africa. And I hope the president now can talk more about this and focus his pleadings on the rich 20% of South African society, and especially the white communities, to extend their commitment to building a non-racial democratic South Africa by contributing something material to it.
And over the past decade, we've seen, of course, protests, some of it linked to xenophobic elements, but again, you've seen poor people saying at the heart of much of it is the fact that, yes, they are poor and desperate for economic opportunity. You look at the scale of the devastation from this round of unrest, and you wonder if it is what is ultimately going to give the ANC government a big enough fright to finally address the issues of poverty and inequality. Do you think so?
It's very difficult to say, because, look, in all fronts, what I notice, there's a lot of dragging of feet. In the economic cluster, in the security cluster, there is just a lot of dragging of feet, and you don't know why. You don't know what is the reason. What appears very clearly is that our government doesn't seem to have a coherent, reactive, rapid response plan. A coherent, reactive, rapid response plan. That's what our government doesn't have. Things happen, but it takes time to respond.
And why is that, Prof? Why is there that level of lethargy, if you will?
Yes. It's very, very concerning. The level of lethargy. It's like you are dealing with a government which has been infiltrated by some elements we don't know. But the lethargy, the delay, the dragging of it, you find it in every department. That's what is happening in South Africa today. And I think Cyril has to confront this. Why is it happening like this?
Professor Kwandiwe Kondlo, good to speak to you. Speaking to us today about the criticism of these security cluster ministers in cabinet and their response to the unrest in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal last week. Prof, thank you again for your time.